I want to give a big thank you to our moderator and panelists who are all MG100 fellows. Thank you for donating your time today to share your thoughts and experience with our alumni. Thank you everybody for tuning in, and I'll turn it over to our moderator, Rhett Power.
Hello everyone, thank you for joining us today. And I want to thank the U.S. Embassy in Brazil and the State Department for allowing us and giving us this platform to be with you today. I do want to encourage everyone to turn on their video so that we can see everybody's bright, shiny faces. So if you want to turn on your video, please do. We'd love to see you and get to know you. That's visual. I'm a visual person, so being able to do that is really important. So today we're going to be talking about, as Julie said, we're going to be talking about leadership during a crisis. Now, the coronavirus is having an impact on all of us. Worldwide, every business, every family is feeling this in many different ways. And the effect of this pandemic that it's having is, as I said, is worldwide. And it's important as leaders that we respond. And it's important that we take care of our families, ourselves, our teams, our people, and our customers. So we're going to dig into that today. We're going to talk about and explore how we can do that better today on this call. That's what we're going to do. That's our whole reason for doing this. And I've got some of the leading experts in the business, and I can't wait to introduce them. I do briefly want to introduce myself. I'm an executive coach, I'm a speaker, and I'm an author. In 2018, I was named the best small and medium-sized business coach in the U.S., the #1 thought leader for entrepreneurship, I think is 360. I write for Forbes and Inc. magazine and Thrive Global, and I host a daily LinkedIn Live show where I host today's business leaders, and we try to find out their secrets to success. I also have a third book coming out this fall on how we talk to ourselves, self-talk. I want to introduce our panel today, and I'm really excited about this because these three people are colleagues, and I can't wait to introduce them to you. Sally Helgesen is an author, speaker, and consultant. She's a champion of women's leaders and identified by Forbes as the world's premier expert on women's leadership. Her latest book, How Women Rise, written with good friend and a mentor to all of us, Marshall Goldsmith, explores the behaviors likely to get in women's way as they seek advancement and it gives other powerful solutions to help women realize their full potential. Her groundbreaking book, The Web of Inclusion, was called by the Wall Street Journal as it was called one of the best books on leadership ever, and is credited with bringing the language of inclusion into business. Richie Norton, who has joined us, is an award-winning author of the book, The Power of Starting Something Stupid, and Resumes Are Dead and What to Do About It. He is a serial entrepreneur and is founder of the Global Consulting Circle, which helps create scale business models for venture-backed startups and strategy for private equity entry and exit. He is co-founder of Product, which helps entrepreneurs turn ideas into profitable products with global sourcing and end-to-end supply chain, which is fascinating. And I'm sure Richie's going to share some of that with us today. Fiona Macaulay is a seasoned social entrepreneur. She's CEO and founder of the Wild Network, Women's Innovators and Leaders Network. She founded and led for a decade the Youth Economic Opportunities Network. She scaled it to be the world's largest sustained network of stakeholders, working on youth workforce development, financial inclusion, and enterprise creation. She is credited with playing a leading role in professionalizing the youth development sector. Fiona is currently the entrepreneur in residence at Georgetown University's McDonough School of Business in Washington, D.C., and she provides executive leadership coaching at Dartmouth Tuck School of Business. Thank you guys for joining us, my panelists. And I do want to take a few seconds to talk about the rules of the road today. Number one, please keep your feed on mute so that we drown out we don't have any background noise. And secondly, ask questions. That's why we're here. So please ask your questions. I would ask you to type them in the chat box. If you go down to the bottom of your screen on Zoom, you'll see something that says chat, and then you'll have a screen that pops up on the right-hand side. Please type your questions into that. Don't be shy. That's why we're here. Now, I want to start off by asking each of our panelists to talk for a few minutes on leadership today. What is important in this crisis? What is their take on this crisis? What is their take on what we should be doing as leaders? And just to give us sort of a broad view of their feelings and what they're thinking now, and how you can be the best you can be in this sort of interesting time that we're all in and that we're all facing. So, Sally, do you mind if I start with you?
Unmute. I don't mind. I'm happy to start, Rhett. Thank you so much for having me here. It's a real pleasure. Especially, I was supposed to be in Sao Paulo all last week doing about 4 workshops based on my book with Marshall, How Women Rise, of which I happen to have the Brazilian edition right here. So we've been, that's been doing very well in Brazil. So I was supposed to be doing these workshops. And it's been a really interesting time with the coronavirus in terms of thinking about the impact on leadership, and especially how that impacts women leaders. The workshops I do are aimed at helping women leaders address what may get in their way. Also helping men to support women by having a very specific idea of their strengths and habits that can hold them back, and help organizations be a better force in developing women's careers. So in the workshops I do, I really emphasize 3 capabilities that are essential: intentionality, connection, and presence. And all my work goes into those buckets. And as I think about them, all 3 of those are both more challenging and more important in this crisis. So I want to speak for a moment about each one of them, because I think that there's really interesting ways that they're playing out. Intentionality is really being very, very clear and very explicit about what it is you intend to contribute in the world. And this has been upended. About a week ago, I reviewed my 2020 intentions and realized that all of them had to some degree been exploded. But this doesn't matter. What's helpful now is to think, what do I intend to contribute in this time of crisis? And how can this benefit my family, friends, colleagues, customers, clients, suppliers, the whole range? What do I intend to contribute? Being very clear about that is going to help us navigate all the choices that we have to make, many of which are very new choices. And this applies to all of us. It helps us think about the actions we want to take every single day. Connections. One of the upsides of this crisis, if you could call it that, because it is overwhelming and tragic, is that many of us have much more time to reach out to people and to be in touch and to build connections. And that has been one of the real gifts of this period. But it's also important, if you have a very clear intentionality, to think also, when it's appropriate, of how do I want to engage people to help me make my contribution. And in order to do that, it has to be inspiring and resonate with them. I'm getting so many offers. You know, I've switched my model to leading in the time of coronavirus, et cetera. You want to be really clear about where you're adding value and how people can be inspired. And you also want to acknowledge that people are being overwhelmed with what they have. And finally, I just want to say a word about presence, which is really, really key in this period. Presence is probably the toughest, because presence requires being able to mitigate distraction. And every one of us is distracted now by what is going on. It's very difficult to navigate. Many of us are also distracted by working at home. And that requires different kinds of skills and approaches. So we have new demands also from customers, clients, et cetera. The most important thing, I believe, and I think we're really going to be tested in this period in terms of maintaining presence, is to have clear policies in place for what you're trying, that support what you're trying to achieve, and to share what these policies are. Think through, what do you need that protects your time, that protects your ability to be reflective, that that protects your ability to have sufficient bandwidth, and then be as clear as you can about what you need. Do this with your family as well as with the people that you work with. It requires some speaking up. It may require some pushing back and negotiation, but this is the time to get comfortable with understanding the importance of setting boundaries that protect your ability to be present, because presence is how we manifest leadership and how leadership gets understood at a visceral level from the people that we work with. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you, Sally, very much. Fiona, do you mind going next?
No, I'd love to go. I'd love to go next. So this is wonderful to be on the Zoom call with all of you entrepreneurs. I really feel like I'm among my people, and seeing all of you people who make it happen, who are change makers in this world, this really makes my day. So thank you for this opportunity to connect with you. I'd love to kind of check in with you all and do some interactivity here. I want to list some characteristics of entrepreneurs, social entrepreneurs, social innovators. And if I say a characteristic and you think, yes, that applies to me, if you could just like hold up a finger. Okay, so if I say a characteristic that applies to you, just hold up a finger. And Rhett, Sally, and Richie, Julie, I invite you to participate as well. All right, who here has a lot of grit? Who is someone that can keep going no matter what's in front of them? Okay, awesome. Who here has a sense of ownership over the work that they're doing, over the problems they're solving and the change that they make? Who has a real sense of ownership over what they're doing? Okay, awesome. Who here can sometimes be overly optimistic? You are so convinced that the change you are making in the world is important, that the product you're bringing to market is needed, that, you know, sometimes you just like can't believe everyone doesn't agree with you. Yeah, okay. Awesome. So who here sometimes feels a little bit impatient? Like, why is change not happening as fast as it should be? Okay. Who here can sometimes engage in some negative self-talk? You're like, you're not like, and I'll share some of my negative self-talk. I'm not moving fast enough. I'm not getting people on board fast enough. You know, this kind of like, I should have run that meeting better. Anyone ever have that? Have a little of that negative self-talk? Rhett, you're a two-hander there. Yep. Okay. Thanks, Yvonne. I see you. Rainam, awesome. Janine, Flavia. Okay. So, you know, as I said at the start, I felt like I was amongst my tribe of entrepreneurs. And now I know from all of us waving at each other that I truly am. So I want to share these characteristics of entrepreneurs that you have. You know, these really are superpowers. And as you know from the people around you, not everybody has the grit, the determination, the drive, the vision that you have. And so I really want to congratulate you for, you know, being entrepreneurs and the change makers that you are. And what I've experienced is that these superpowers can sometimes also be kryptonite. So if anyone's familiar with the Superman hero, you know, Superman's got all these characteristics that set this person apart from others. But there's also this kryptonite. There's also this kind of Achilles heel that can sometimes make those superpowers work against him. So let me share an example for myself. When the coronavirus kind of first hit, and here where I am in Washington, D.C., I really was quite flummoxed. Like, I had so many thoughts racing through my head. My optimism just kind of like deep dived. And while I'm generally so optimistic, when my optimism like gets smacked on the head, it goes like for a big deep dive, and then the negative self-talk sets in. And my challenge is that I'm supposed to be hosting a 400-person event on May 6th, a women's leadership event. And like nobody's leaving their homes. So what my team and I have been working towards for the last 9 months, it has been postponed. And I hope it takes place in October, but maybe it won't even take place this year in 2020. So when that first happened, I felt like I had to get the whole plan in place, like how we were going to communicate with all of our funders and participants and the venue we had signed an expensive deal with. I felt like I had to sort that out in a morning and then be able to go to my team and tell them what the new plan was. And that just made me even more crazy, like more negative self-talk, more spiraling down. And the lesson that I learned, that I have learned before, but maybe like me, sometimes I have to experience lessons again and again, is that I didn't need to sort out that whole problem by myself. In fact, my team, who was also concerned about all these things because they also have a lot of ownership, they really wanted to be part of the solution with me. And by thinking I needed to come up with a whole new plan and solve all the problems by myself, I was actually depriving them of the opportunity to be part of the solution, which in turn made them feel better. So when I got this feedback from them, I realized that in fact, my kind of like grit and determination and only I can be the change maker, that I'm responsible, was not only really tough on me, but it was like taking something away from the people around me. Because stress by yourself is really a terrible thing. But shared stress, in fact, really lifts the load, and we're not burdening others. We're actually inviting other people in to be part of the solution that they want to be part of. So as we go through the ups and downs, that we know are going to continue to come, we know that we're already dealing with customers and sales and cash flow and like innovation, right? We're already dealing with that. And now we have all this uncertainty. So I want to invite you incredible group of people, you incredible entrepreneurs, to make sure that you are giving people the gift of your team members, your stakeholders. Give them the gift of bringing them in to some of the problems that you're seeking to solve, because they wanna be part of it. And I would offer that when you share that responsibility, it actually becomes much easier on you. You end up with better solutions. And you know what? Part of that silver lining Sally talked about, it can also like actually be quite fun. Like I can't tell you how many laughs I've had rescheduling a 400-person event. So thank you. And like, here's to all of you. Just really admire everything you're doing.
Thank you, Fiona, very, very much. That was fun. You always like to find your tribe. It's always nice to identify the people that you connect with and have so much in common with. If you are on the phone, please do mute if you're not muted, so that we can sort of minimize the background noise. Mr. Richie Norton.
Hello, guys. How are you? Oi, tudo bem? Eu falo pouquinho de português. Eu morei em Fortaleza por 2 anos, então moro no Havaí agora. So for in English, I was just saying I'm Rich. I used to live in Brazil for a couple of years. I live in Hawaii. It's also 7 a.m. here. I didn't get any sleep. I'm super tired. Okay, so I actually do a ton of work in China. I go there at least 6 times a year. And so I actually knew about the coronavirus in early January. And my suppliers, people I work with, friends, people I've known for years, people I know, love, and trust, were reaching out to me to help them get supplies to China. And I said, you guys are the ones who make it. What are you talking about? And they started telling me what was happening. And so we started working all around the world, including in Brazil, to get supplies to China. And as an entrepreneur and starting all kinds of businesses and a coach, I started warning America about what was happening. Not that the government didn't know, but the people didn't. And at one point I wrote, the world will be, this is 2 months ago, I said, the world will be known as before coronavirus and after coronavirus. And when I said that, I got so much hate. I got dramatic hate. I got people saying that I was a fearmonger, that I can't believe you're making up these lies. And the reason I mention this to you is because if you are a leader, that means you see the future. It means you're predicting what's going to happen next. And it means you're preparing your people for what's going to happen. People are like, hey, you need to be positive. You need to be optimistic. Well, of course you do. Like there's no doing anything unless there's at least a glimmer of hope. But courage isn't like always just rainbows and unicorns. Courage is actually being brave directly in the face of fear. Directly in the face of fear. And I know as a small entrepreneur, you are scared of selling right now because you are scared, as I am, that people are going to think you're taking advantage of people, or that you're being an opportunist, or that you can't fulfill the way you used to. But I want to just give you some advice, straightforward. There is nothing better that you could do for the people that you've been serving and providing products for than continuing to serve them and provide products for them. And you can straight up tell people, I am scared that you're going to think I'm doing something that I shouldn't. Please, let me explain to you why I'm still working and selling and trying to help you. Because I'll tell you this, your true customers, the ones that actually need your product or service, if they're not getting the support, love, products, and other goods and services from you, they will go somewhere else to find it. And they will remember that you shut down, and they will go with the people that didn't. So if you want to create loyalty and you want to be a successful entrepreneur in times of crisis, you continue to do what you do, but you do it through the new lens of what's happening in the world right now. And any fear that you think that you have, you should say it out loud. They say, name it to tame it. Just say it out loud. And by doing it, you can start tackling it. One more thing. People say they have goals that they want to do something by the end of coronavirus or this or that. We don't know how long this is going to go. You can't think that way. Also, goals are also oftentimes, they're obviously important, but we're also naive in them. We don't always reach them. I can say I have a goal to write a book, and I'll always have a goal. But the minute I make a decision to write a book, the book is written. So you want to move from goal to decision as soon as possible. And when you don't know how to make a decision, a mentor taught me, ask a better question, get a better answer. Because your mind hates having an open gap. It's always seeking closure. So when you tell yourself, I can't because of the coronavirus, your brain is like a calculator, and your brain says, you're right, you can't. But if you tell your brain, I want to do this despite these challenges, now it leaves an open space in your mind for creativity to fall in, and forces your brain to seek that closure and find an answer. So times of crisis require creativity. It's the number one competency in times of crisis and uncertainty is creativity. And just as important is what's called discernment. If you can be creative and you can discern what's happening in the moment, and you can have that glimmer of hope in the future, and you don't tell your mind you can't, but you know you can, and you believe in your product and service so much that you're not going to quit. You're not going to quit on your people right now. You will find success, you will earn income, and you will support people. And even if you're donating your time and don't make $1 or a real, people will remember what you did and how they felt more than anything else. That's my piece for a second. Thanks.
Thanks, Richie. Thank you very much.
Welcome.
So I want to start the panel part of this, and I wanted to ask a question. My first question to the panel is, what do our teams and our people need from us right now? And each one of you sort of hit on it a little bit, but I want to dig back into that question a little bit and find out what you think our teams, maybe even our family, what people need from us as leaders right now. And Sally, do you mind starting?
Brett, it's showing that someone named Melissa Jacobs started doing screen share.
Yes, it does. And I don't know why.
Is that someone on your team? Oh, there we go. Perfect.
um, do you mind starting, Sally?
Oh, Sally, you're muted.
You're unmuted.
All right, am I unmuted now?
You're unmuted. You're good to go.
Okay. I loved what the other panelists said. I think that what the people who work with us are looking for is for us to manage to balance being authentic and positive. Being positive is obviously key, because people who look to us and depend on us, if we're in a negative space, that is very destructive for them and for us and for what we're trying to contribute to the world. But I think it has to be tempered with some realism and a willingness to share what your fears are. I love how Richie talked about his, the pushback he got when he had the foresight to see, because of his experience and his connections, what was coming our way, and the courage he demonstrated in that. So I think that part of demonstrating courage is really thinking about, what is authentic in terms of what I am understanding and where I think this may be going, what I think may be happening for people. None of us know the answer, so we want to make that clear. Guys, I'm not quite, I don't know. Things are evolving and changing. But I think balancing positive and authentic, which as leaders we're called to do anyway, is really being challenged right now. Because the reality is bleak and frightening and potentially overwhelming. And this is especially true for smaller businesses and entrepreneurs. It has that potential. So we want to find the positive, but stay real. And that means being in touch with what you are feeling rather than denying it, and finding a way to express that that's not, where you're not overwhelmed by emotion.
Yeah. What do you think, Fiona?
Well, I second everything that you said, Sally. So 100%. And I think empathy, so I guess 3 things I would like to share. I think empathy is incredibly important right now. You might be having a good day, but somebody that you're talking to, could be a customer, could be a team member, could be a consultant, may not be having a good day. I think many of us are having days like this. We're no longer can kind of commit to saying we're going to be like this every day. So empathy, asking people how they are, hearing what they say and empathizing is important at the start, I find, of most conversations now. And if people are having a great day, then that's great too. That is definitely something to celebrate. So I think empathy, tapping into our empathy is extremely important. The second thing I would like to share that I'm finding very helpful is, because of juggling, having my children at home who are being homeschooled, upheavals at work, and then sometimes just feeling very anxious about the coronavirus environment, is that before I'm entering into conversations with people, I'm really taking a moment to think about how I want to show up. And it really takes only about 10 seconds, but it means actually stopping. And I have a little stop sign here on my screen that actually I have a little stop sign for myself. That's how do I want to show up, in this phone call? And taking a couple deep breaths and being intentional. So connecting to one of Sally's other points, being intentional about how I want to show up, I think is meaning that I'm showing up calmer and positive and really listening to the person in front of me. So I think that gives them a better experience. And then when I get off a Zoom call, right, because it's all on Zoom now or the phone, I also feel great about how I showed up. So that's very good for warding off that negative self-talk that might otherwise come, if I'm short-tempered on the phone, or if I'm cutting someone off or not really focused on what they're saying. So I think the empathy, and I think the intentionality with how we're showing up. so that we can be the best leader possible. And again, as Sally said, that's not to say that we don't want to be authentic. Like, we can also share if we're like not having a great day. But that is, we can share that information also coming from a place of calmness and from a place of being very focused on the person we're talking to. Thanks, Red.
You're welcome. Can I get a show of hands? Who is actually working from home now all of the time? So that's pretty much everybody, looks like, on the call. And how many of you are managing your teams remotely? I just want to kind of get a sense of that. Okay. So about half and half. Okay. And are you finding that challenging right now? Is that something that is a challenge if you are managing people remotely? You can raise your hands. Okay. All right, I just want to get a sense of that. Richie, what do you think people need from us as leaders right now?
Thank you. I love everything you said, Sally and Fiona, and thanks, Rhett. And I totally agree. And I also love, I think that both Sally and Fiona and Rhett, all three of them, they're demonstrating how to show the empathy, even with these questions. As you raise your hand, we're all of a sudden going, oh, me too. I'm not alone. Like, this is going to be okay. Or it's not okay, but at least we're in it together, right? How many of you are actually either a little bit scared or fearful of the unknown, or maybe you have someone on your team that's a little bit scared or fearful of the unknown?
Sure, everybody, right? Yeah.
I think it's important to recognize that in your organization as a leader. And also, let's just be certain, like, I don't know, on this call, you might be the leader of your organization, but you might not be the number one person at the top. Leadership is not a position, it's a choice, right? So you're always influencing people. And even sometimes people at the top, they're constrained in what they say and do because of perception or because of regulation. Who knows what the situation is. But I think what's super important for you on this call is instilling trust, both in you and in them, and also in the situation. It's very important to be able to remember that you can say, I am scared too. And to also, when they wonder what the future is, you already know their mind's going to the worst case scenario. And we always avoid going to the worst case scenario. Don't say, let's talk about the worst case scenario. I don't think it's going to happen. Let's talk about what we're going to do if it's going to hit the worst case scenario. And you go, but best case scenario? What if we did this? And you talk about the best case scenario. And maybe you fall somewhere in the middle and you get those goals and those decisions going. But at least everyone's like on the same page. And this is trust. One of the reasons everything is slowing down and getting harder is not just being quarantined. It's because people don't trust what's going to happen next. And you can say, I also don't know what's going to happen next. But if we don't know anything and don't do anything, it will be worse than trying. So you want to show your people the darkness of the night, as they say, and the brightness of the day. And through that trust building process and throwing empathy and being authentic and facing what's right in front of you, say it out loud with them so that they can feel part of the team and not alone. Let's be super real. People are not themselves right now. Even if they're putting on a front, none of us are ourselves right now. And neither are your people. And you are in your home, your spouse is sad, your kids are wild, they can't go outside and do the things they normally did. You're trying to save the world. You don't have to be the hero, always. And it's okay, even when you're trying to be your best, to break down and take a nap and relax. Because the psychological safety is everything. You need those breaks. So take care of yourself. Confront the darkness of the night, show them the brightness of the day, and instill that trust. And I think you'll be able to be a more effective leader.
Thank you, Richie. That's so true. I have a question that I thought was really interesting that I want to get to, and it's from Marcella. I hope I pronounced. I think that's right, Marcella. How to be positive when you are afraid? Should pretending be an option? Whoever would like to take that to start would be fine.
Yeah,
Sally,
I'm happy to go ahead. I think I'm unmuted. And you know, that's a great question, Marcella. I think many of us are thinking about that. And I think the key themes we've talked about is being authentic. Like, it's okay to express your fear. I think what's important is sort of what I was mentioning a moment ago about you can be afraid and express your fear in a calm and measured way, right? It is, you can express your emotions in a calm and measured way. And as leaders, that's something we're striving to always do. It becomes a bit harder in times of crisis, but it also becomes more paramount, more important in times of crisis. So expressing your feelings is important, I think, for your mental health. It connects your authenticity and it lets your team know that they're not alone. But I think it really has to do with the delivery about it. And I'd love to add one more thing, Rhett, about the positivity.
Yeah.
I think, and I'm just going to even ask you all here now, like, what is a silver lining? So I'll, because I know our participants are muted, but I'm going to ask Sally and Richie to quickly answer. Actually, you know, let's hear from Julie. Let's hear from Julie and you too, Julie. So very quickly, what is a silver lining of you from the last 2 or 3 weeks from this coronavirus period? And I'll kick off by saying a silver lining for me is that I miss my kids during the day. And so I have gotten to like spend more of them and kind of learn more about like how they do their reading and how they're learning the math. So while it's far from perfect, as I said to them now, the school they go to is not as good as the one they used to go to. It has been a silver lining for me. So let's hear from Julie, then Richie, then Sally.
I agree with you. I think more time with kids and family, but one thing I have found to be a silver lining is reconnecting with people that I haven't really taken the time to connect with for a long time. So checking in with them, seeing how they're doing. It's been a great opportunity. It makes me realize I need to do that. You don't have to have a crisis to do that, and I should be doing it anyway. But that's a silver lining, is being more connected to people who are far away.
Thank you, Julie. That's beautiful. Richie, what's your silver lining?
Thank you. I totally agree with Julie. And also, even though I said you don't have to always be the hero, I always try to be the hero. And I always look for where people not being helped, can I help there? And so I've seen lots of opportunities for helping others, and not just in working with governments and hospitals and with senior homes and people in industry that need medical equipment, which is something obvious, but like the little things, like, yeah, being there for my family, being there for my business partners, being there for my customers in ways I never have been able to show up because the situation didn't exist. And one question you can ask your people along with what Fiona's asking right here is ask people and yourself, what am I able to do now that I wasn't able to do before? And I asked that on Facebook and Instagram and wherever else. And I got lists, comments of people just saying, I'm home with my kids now. There's no traffic anymore. And you know, at the end of the day, what's cool is if you like working from home or not, you're going to be doing this more, probably forever. The entire world's going to change. So I see it as a silver lining is we get to finally put it into practice, change our behavior in a way that's consistent with sometimes our greatest values.
Yeah.
There's a huge silver lining in that.
No, that's awesome. So Sally, we'll come to you in a sec. But I'm curious, like from all of us on the video, like as you hear people talking about the positive, like do you have a positive feeling in you? You can just show me with like a wave of your finger. Like, do you have a sense of positivity? Thanks, Juan. Thanks, Marcella, Luis, Juan, Pedro, Tulio. Thank you. So I wanted to do that practical exercise because it's amazing how talking about positive things makes us feel more positive. So a moment ago, I'd said, you know, starting with talking to people to check in with how they are. Something you could incorporate into your empathetic check-in is also asking for people something positive. Usually not right off the bat because people need to let you know where they're at, but sort of transitioning into also providing time to talk about the positive, I think can feel really good. And with Rhett's permission, we'll just hear Sally's positive thing before you move on with your next question.
Well, I did want to say, Fiona, I think that that's a really good way when you're doing Zoom meetings or you're doing your check-ins with your people I think that's a really good point, takeaway point, because I think it's a great way to ask them how they're doing and get them thinking in that positive way. So I think that's brilliant. Thank you.
Yeah, Fiona, I just loved what you did. I mean, I found it very helpful. Personally, I felt it helpful in thinking about a couple, workshops that I'm going to be doing virtually. It's a wonderful way to approach that. My positive silver linings are like Julie. I am connecting with people. I connect with people I went to high school with. I connect with people I've worked with over the last 25 years, and that has been very, very meaningful to me. Very helpful. And the other thing is really, getting used to being in this virtual world has been fantastic, because the last 2 years I've been home 5 weeks a year, 5 weeks a year. And I have loved it, but I'm seeing that there are other ways I can deliver what I have to the world. And so I think going forward, once we're out of this, which could be a year, going forward, there'll be, I'll be doing more of that, and I'll be, in one place more often, and then that will give me more time to stay connected. So certainly for myself, I do see a silver lining here.
Thank you, Sally. That was beautiful. And you have a beautiful home place to do that and enjoy. So enjoy it some more. So I want to combine two questions that we have here, one from Ivan, I think, and one from Paloma. And it's about team engagement. Paloma asked, how do we keep our teams engaged and give them emotional support? Mental health and emotional support is a big challenge with remote teams. And then Ivan asked, one of our colleagues is clearly not dealing with the quarantine well and being alone, and I'm not sure how to help. Do you guys have any thoughts on those two questions?
Can I ask how that colleague is not doing well? I mean, is that colleague going out, or is that colleague just under pressure?
We'll wait for the response, but I don't know if Mars. There he is.
Yeah, she's kind of feeling trapped at home with no contact to friends and family. So it's been really hard for her to she's just struggling. She's in therapy and everything, but I don't know how, as her manager, I can support her at this moment. Like, I'm clearly not giving her much to do because I don't want to overwhelm her or ask her to be productive, but I also would like other ways on how to be supportive.
Thanks, Ivan.
I'll let someone else take that. I just wanted to clarify, maybe Richie or Fiona.
Yeah. I think, Ivan, I'm curious, we've talked about some techniques, over the last 20 minutes or so. What could you imagine taking forward with your colleague?
Yeah, I will definitely try to do more calls with her. I really enjoyed the positive intentions exercise and the silver lining. So I think this could be helpful. And I don't know, I'm really, like, I asked her if she's doing any hobbies or if she's being busy or resting, but she didn't engage so much in the conversation. So I don't know how to step in, what should I do as a manager? What should I let her deal with her therapist, or,
Yeah.
You might ask her a couple questions and then give her time. When I started off by talking about intention and what we intend to contribute as leaders, but what we intend to contribute in this time of confusion. That's a kind of question, what do you feel called to do in this time? That's a very deep question. And, trying to get a quick answer is probably not a great idea, but I would give her maybe 3 questions and say, I'd like you to think about these over the next few days. and then get back to me with some answers and let's discuss them, because I think that will both deepen what you're talking about, but give it some specificity and some idea in a positive frame. You know, what do you intend to contribute is a positive frame.
Okay.
It's obvious that you care a lot.
He stated that he was ousted from Grey's Anatomy in 2006.
I don't think I'm watching Grey's Anatomy. I don't know what that was. It's obvious that you care a lot, and I think that's really important. There's some boundaries here. There's some personal stuff going on that's different than professional. But what everyone's experiencing, and including her and you and I, is we're experiencing what's called trauma. And I know we all know this word, but I suggest just Googling it and looking at the word trauma and all the signs of it and how to deal with it, for sure. We're also dealing with grief. We've all experienced a ton of loss. And I have a son that passed away. I have a brother-in-law that passed away. I had a son that got hit by a car and almost died. My wife had a stroke and lost her memory and got it back. I had a friend that just recently died. We have friends dying all around us right now, not just from coronavirus, but from other things. It is a wild time. You don't know what she's experiencing. People ask a similar question when somebody dies, because I've had so much trauma in my life. They say, what do I say? The only thing to say is, I'm sorry. It's the only thing to say. Because every time you try to even be empathic, they then see it like, oh, you don't know how I'm feeling, right? There's weirdness. Tell her you're sorry. Do some Zoom calls, maybe like with your team, so she can feel part of the group again. You know, and all the things that Sally and Fiona said, of course. But also give her the grace to say, also, if you don't want to show up and you want to just relax, there's no pressure from us right here. It's totally cool. We got you. We got your back. It's going to be good. No worries. Reach out whenever. We'll check in. If you want to get on, cool. If you don't, whatever. And then let her do her thing with her psychologist and therapist and her friends and family, because that's where she's going to get the most help on that side of it anyways.
And that's where she's focused probably, right?
Right. Yeah.
I mean, that's probably the biggest concern in her world right now.
100%.
I think that's a great segue into a question that I have. How do we look at productivity right now? Because I think there are a couple schools of thought, right? There is the school of thought that you have to keep people busy because they want to be busy. Or maybe in her case, she needs time to process, because we're all processing this and we all process things in different ways. So what do you guys, what's your take on productivity, and how do we talk about it with our teams, I guess? And what does it mean even in today's, what does it even mean right now? Who would like to take that on? Sally?
I'll take it because it relates to, I've had about 14 calls in the last 2 weeks from leaders whose problem has been that the person, the big positional leader that they report to is trying to be as productive as possible and pretend it's business as usual. And what these people are dealing with is, they've got people who work for them who are homeschooling 3 children, and the big boss sends out a directive, I need X, Y, and Z by 5 o'clock today. And one of the women will respond, I can get it to you by 7:30. I've got 4 kids I'm homeschooling. And this guy will call her and say, this is not acceptable. We need to maintain maximum productivity. At that point, your job is to really do what Peter Drucker says. As a leader, your job is to manage upward and manage the expectations of that individual, and really be very clear that our standard definitions of productivity need to be adjusted. And I think the other thing, you said about, how to engage people, no one size fits all now. And that's why the techniques of empathy and listening and a disposition to doing that is so important, because different people, as is being described here by Ivan, different people are needing very different things right now. And so having, I talked about policies and protocols, that's for you as an individual. But trying to enforce policies rigidly right now is going to blow up in your face. So that's, I think, one thing to consider.
Thank you. Yeah. Fiona, Richie, anybody?
I just agree with everything that Sally said. I think open communication has never been better. And one of the things that I do that I have found extremely helpful is that I'm having a stand-up meeting with my team every morning at 10 a.m. for 20 minutes. So sometimes the meetings, can need to be longer, but by having us all check in every morning at 10 to share what it is that we're accomplishing that day, with things changing so quickly, it's just been very useful the way that stand-up meetings are for startups. I'm not a startup, but stand-up meetings when you're innovating or things are moving quickly have always been a go-to. So right now things are moving quickly, right? Things are changing. So I'm finding the stand-up meeting extremely helpful. And I think by people saying, like, here's what I'm committing to doing today, it's actually putting the power in their hands to say, like, what can I do today? Given the tempo of my kids, given the tempo of my partner, given my tempo, people are just having a chance to say what they can commit to that day. And I think as, managers, sometimes maybe we have concerns or have had concerns in the past, people are going to try to, do the least possible. But I certainly don't find that. And if you've got the right people on your team, I think you won't find that either. And it's this question of giving people trust and grace, I think, goes a long way. And remembering that the coronavirus is not going to last forever. And how we conduct ourselves as leaders, the grace that we give people and the support that we give them, that is going to come back to us, whether people are employees or, customers or vendors. So let's remember that we're in these relationships for the long haul.
Totally agree, and it's beautiful. It's exactly, and I love the context also that Sally gave there. What if your boss is putting pressure on you can't, and how do you manage up and all of that? One thing to remember, just you think of the word, like, just internally, just look directly. Productivity is a product, and so whatever it is, at the end of the day, the goal of being productivity is producing. It's an output.
The show falls at 8 a minute.
So one way to be more productive is actually to manage your time better. And I'm not really a fan of actually managing your time, because I think that you have all the time in the world. It's more about focusing on what happens right before the product is produced. Because you already know, all of us know, nothing really gets done until there's like a deadline or a due date, and we pull off heroic efforts at midnight to get it done, which means we're most productive as we procrastinate right at the very, very, very end. What that means is, using that Pareto principle, the 80-20 rule, 80% of your normal time isn't actually all that productive. You're putting out fires that didn't even need to be put out. So if you start asking yourself, what do I actually have to do? And if I call it, you eliminate the things you actually don't, then you delegate the things that you don't want to do if possible, and outsource or pay someone else if possible to do the things you don't want to do, and focus on the one singular or few very small things that you can do specifically to produce the product, the output that someone wants. You will collapse your time from 8 hours a day to 1 hour a day. You already know that an 8 hour day is really just a 1 hour day, just stretched out for 8 hours. You know that. So just collapse it and do the 1 hour that actually is necessary.
Okay, so final round, final real quick round, 1 minute, 1 or 2 minutes, and then we have to wrap it up. I'm going to ask each of the panelists to give me one, if you just remember one thing from today's conversation, what is it? What's their key takeaway for you as we wrap it up? Sally?
My key takeaway was really from Fiona, where she said that she asks herself, and it takes about 10 seconds, how do I want to show up for this moment, for this call, for this person that's in front of me? And I'm accustomed to doing that when we have a webinar or a program like this. Not so accustomed to doing that at home or with people I'm really close to. And I want to begin to incorporate that degree of intentionality, that that what some people call the sacred pause at the very beginning before every human interaction, because I know that that will give it more resonance, that I'll be able to save myself a lot of time by not saying stupid things that I then have to take back, and that it will deepen that connection and that perception of empathy. So thank you, Fiona, Richie, you've been fantastic. Really enjoyed this.
Thank you, Sally. Who would like to go next? Who's ready?
I'm unmuted. I'll go ahead. Well, thank you, Sally. I actually love how you're raising the bar on doing that at home as well. So I'm right there with you. I might need you as an accountability partner, but I'm right there with you. And so I've had so many takeaways from everyone, and it's been hugely empowering to see like entrepreneurs from across Brazil on this call. Like, I actually find this really uplifting, because it makes me feel like we are really in this together. And actually, kind of at a tactical level, I love what one of our participants posted. Iluska, can you wave, Iluska? So we know who you are. Yes, thank you. So I had talked about what I'm finding the stand-up meeting in the morning, quick check-in meeting with everyone about what we're going to accomplish that day, really helpful. And in the chat, Iluska said, yeah, do that in the morning, but then do one in the evening, like do one at the end of the workday as you kind of wrap up your work. So that's my takeaway from you, Iluska. Thank you so much.
You know, Fiona, I like that because it actually gives people permission to end their day, right? I like that.
Nice added bonus. And Rhett, if you'll let me just slip one more in.
Please
I also,
do. Yeah,
I have appreciated the consistency between what you've said, Rhett, Sally, and Richie, about kind of like this, like really being authentic, checking in with people on their emotions and how they're doing. I find that very validating. And given that I have been flexing that muscle in this time of Corona, maybe you've been flexing that muscle too. You haven't always spent that amount of time or care on how people are doing. That's been very validating to me, that that's something that I want to, take forward in the post-Corona era. So, thanks Richie and Sally and Rhett for that.
Yeah, big culture. I think that'll make such a difference in your culture, your work culture, that I don't think we even know how that's going to impact how people feel about you as a leader and the organization as a whole. Richie, what do you think?
No, I think it was Ivan Prado who was talking about his employee. I love the idea of thinking about the individual, because a lot of times we think about everybody, but it's actually more powerful to think about the individual, because everyone's an individual. But also the story that Ivan's now going to be sharing, or that she will be sharing with others, that her manager was so good, will spread throughout the organization. And, or not, who knows? But it's those tiny 30-second stories that create culture. The ones that we share and share and share is what we believe. I love everything that everyone said. And if I had to pick one other thing, I love when Sally was talking about managing our leadership, managing up, because I think it's incredibly important to manage expectations, which another word would be boundaries. And we set boundaries for ourselves. And also, there's never been a greater time in the entire world for it to be accepted to forgive others and give them a grace and say, it's okay. We're in this together, man. It's okay. Because when the end of this all happens, whether it's an end or a continuous kind of thing, they're not going to remember that product, the productivity. They're going to remember whether someone got angry or not, and also how you dealt with that angry person or not. Manage the feeling and the culture overall.
Thank you, Richie. And thank you, panelists, everybody. And thank you for being here today. Thank you. So let's give everybody a round of applause. Everybody deserves it. And thank you for joining us today. I think this is important. The thing I'll leave you with, it's important to slow down and take time to process this. I think it's, we often get spun up, and we're moving a 1,000 miles an hour. And I know the last 2 weeks for me, it has been a whirlwind. And what I have to remember is to slow down, process, think, because this is a great time to think about what you're doing and how you're doing it. And so, again, thank you to the embassy. Thank you for the forum. Thank you for being YLI Fellows and doing the good work you're doing. And I'll turn it back over to Julie.
I just want to thank you guys. Thank you to our panelists, Sally, Fiona, Richie. Thank you to Rhett for moderating. Thank you to our alumni. I also need to give a shout out to Fernando Costa, our alumni coordinator, for helping put this together. Thank you, Fernando. Our intention is to do this weekly. Yay, Fernando. As a weekly opportunity to get mentorship and advice from experts in the field. So you should be getting more information. We want to do it at the same time next week. Mentor Talks Brazil. We'll be looking for your feedback and your thoughts, so please let us know. And on behalf of the U.S. Embassy and consulates in Brazil, thank you, thank you, thank you.